Hello, and welcome to Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today, we are going to do a fast and loose tonalist watercolor landscape painting utilizing a 8x10 piece of Stonehenge 90-pound toned paper and some Daniel Smith burnt umber and raw umber. So I'm going to thoroughly coat my paper with water. Then we'll get started. All right, I'm going to use the medium Ron Ranson Hake brush. This one's about 6 years old, so it's really old and gunky, but it's fantastic with textures. I'll grab some raw umber. I'm going to create an imaginary scene. Everything is shedding around here. And let's see, how do we want to do this? Kind of just going with the flow and letting something be created. And while I'm letting this happen, I'll say that you're always welcome to follow along. You have my express permission to sign your own name and to sell anything that you do whenever you're following any of my videos. I want you guys to have fun and have money for art supplies. And yeah, that being said, if you want to support this channel, I have a whole bunch of links down below. And I have the Patreon with exclusive content. And I use that money for more art supplies. So I just put it back into the channel. Okay. In the past week, I've been playing around with a lot of oils. So I'm now just trying to get in the mindset of creating an imaginary scene. Just moving things around. I'm thinking we'll kind of have a landmass right in this region, or some sort of tree grouping, and we'll have some trees closer up, kind of seeing a dynamic landscape coming towards us on an angle. And I think I'll just let this taper off. See what happens. Now the binder clips, I use those just to flatten out the paper. I use the back of the brush in order to get that to flatten, because I don't want any oils from my fingers to create areas of resistance. Having the paper towel in one hand, I can throw some textures into these skies. I can use it to pull up extra moisture. I can use it to add some more texture in the ground. And if I remove too much water and I need to put something back, I could just use that Hake brush right there. Just back and forth. I think I'll pull the sky out right here. Right now I'm just still using that raw umber. You can see it's not really granulating. We can see some properties of this brand, and that's what this technique really helps out with. I'm going to grab a little bit of burnt umber, and burnt umber is going to be a little bit warmer. It's going to be on the redder side of things. I'm using that to bring this landmass closer. Okay. Going back to some raw umber, but I'm not cleaning the brush, I'm just throwing it on. I'm going to prepare some foliage in this wet sky. It's going to diffuse, it's going to soften up. So I'm thinking about having just a group of trees right about here for the base. Let's do that. Grabbing the number 1 rigger, start putting in tree trunk ideas. I'm going to be layering over these, so they're going to be either covered up completely or you'll see a little bit show through at the end. This is just my way of kind of creating a sense of depth and creating a scene that I believe in. It also creates some variations in tone and softness as we work. You can see that area that I pulled out all that moisture, how it has some crisp lines in there, and then others are diffusing. So playing around in this aspect lets you see how the different moisture levels will play out and learn what's going on with your materials. I think I want to soften this tonal value a little bit. So that it can kind of hook around in an S-shaped composition where we have this land, whatever it is, a field, coming around in this fashion, and it's going to dip back behind. Trying to work on numerous things at once or back to back in order to create a sense of unity throughout the painting. Okay, so that being said, let's maybe cut this foreground into another directional shape. I'm gonna grab some of that raw umber. Here. So we have the idea of lines heading back. We now have a rise in the land right here. Grabbing some burnt umber. And usually I scrape out my my rocks, but I'm thinking start getting some paper towel textures in. Just looking for a little bit of randomness and seeing how that wants to go in. Just playing around with textures. I'm holding it like this just to kind of create a little bit of a longer line. And I keep on coming across all these little fuzzies. And they're causing issues. All right. Let me get some burnt umber so I can see how it's going to look if I put that in place. Raw umber on top of that to kind of mellow it and see what's going on. So we're grounding our trees right here. We can bring that tree line out a little bit too. Just that ridge, and that creates more of that S shape. And while we're at it, while we're still wet and wet, feed a little bit of variety in this group of trees. I think I'm going to bring it down a little bit. We can come back to that. Flatten out the paper. stronger foliage. All right, I'm going to pause the camera. I think at this point, well, not yet. Let's not do a dry off just yet. Let's see if I can pull out whiter for a bit more rocks. Got the card to scrape. Just letting it dance along and create shapes and patterns. Just getting textures in there. Maybe there's a little bit of something going back in here. Okay, now we're going to pause it and hit with the blow dryer. All right, so a few things. I'm really liking this shape of these background trees. I think I'm going to build up some more of it just to experiment, but I could see that that's more of a holdover from the studies I've been doing in the oils. This is a great example of the raw umber, how it's cooler and greener, and then the burnt umber is redder and wants to come forward in the picture plane. So that being said, let's kind of dive in and see how we can kind of manipulate this group of trees. Now, since I paint flat, I can't get up and move back and see it from a distance. I could sit it on an angle and lean it up against something and look at it from there, but that's pretty inconvenient when you're working wet and going back and forth. But the fact that I film pretty much everything I do in watercolor, I can look through that, and that creates a perceived sense of depth for me to look and see. So oftentimes I'm standing up to create a little bit of sense of depth and distance that I'm viewing it from. I know that I personally get caught up looking too much into a painting without seeing its effect from a distance. And I become more critical of the painting because I'm up close and seeing all the brushstrokes and textures, where just adding a few feet distance from yourself to the painting, you can really see how it would be viewed on a wall. I really don't want much texture in here. I just want some variety of values. I can use my paper towel at this stage as well. And very quickly you're creating a sense of wet and wet again. So I can grab and feed into that to get some soft effects. I don't do that too often, but that lets you go back to a wet and wet phase essentially. Like I said, I like working all over the painting. And I wanted a movement, and then I wanted a movement. So let's see if we can use the Hake brush. Just get a little contour effects. Some little flows and rhythms to the land. A good example of like contour effects and things like that would be looking at Van Gogh. Especially his drawings, just looking at the cross-hatching that he used to create objects and tree masses and foliage. It's really beneficial to look at. Seeking out some of these rocks. Creating shadows for them. I'm breaking up this one that I started doing bigger into smaller rocks because this one's so small but closer to us, it's just going to seem wrong, or at least the way I'm doing it would seem wrong. Maybe shade in a little bit. Bring more there for that rock. You could scrape into these wet areas if they're still wet. Allow more textures to start coming through. All right. I think I need more red here. My burnt umber to push that back. I'm letting the hake brush dance around. I'm kind of all willy-nilly, just letting myself see what textures are forming. Let's see where we're at. Almost looks like walnut ink, this combination. We could explore some thicker trunks. You can see how I'm kind of dancing and shaking my hand. I'm doing that to get more variety. I'm not really looking to do straight up and down tree trunks. The darker values, the fact that it's going more pure pigment, it's pushing them forward in the picture plane. And when you look at the faint effects versus the darker effects, you're creating that sense of depth there. Let's bring one really close. We'll probably add some stronger foliage for this guy. And just the dancing of the hand in this case is just to get variation and just try to get a natural curvatures and movement to the tree trunk. I'm going to come in with the hake. I'm going to try to get a little bit stronger tree in front. It's going to cast a shadow. I can dance a little bit of textures in there too. And I put out heavy enough paint. I should be able to grab some to scrape. Yeah, a little bit. Let's see how we're looking. Yeah, very hazy, very soft. We're pushed back into that mid-ground. Grabbing some more pigment with the number 1. I'm going to give it another tree companion alongside it. And we could always apply paint with a side brush effect. Like that. You can see it's a very wet puddle right now. Get some value changes in there. Feels very different than my normal subject matter or my normal compositions. Moving that out the way. I almost feel like maybe a line of trees right here, have a break, then bring some trees in this region, or I can bring it out to a group, or I can even start moving this line of trees in a different direction. I think bringing some across would be pretty dynamic and worth exploring, so that's what I'm going to go with. They're going to get bigger in size, thicker, more detail. No idea what type of trees they are. Or we can do with a lone tree, and because of perspective, we might have more of a gap between the next tree, so maybe it wouldn't make it onto the page. Let's see where we can do this and what we can get out of it. Dancing around, getting some of those branches out there. We'd be able to see a lot more on this one. It's closer. This one would be creating a shadow as well. Plus we need to just ground it in space. Okay, now I'm going to try something different with these trees. I'll try what I've been doing with some of the lone trees based off of the tonalist masters. Where with them, from what I've been seeing in demos from Dennis Sheehan and other people, is that it's sponging a paper towel on with texture is an effect for trees. And that's with oils, but as you can see, you can start getting that effect with watercolor. Taking the brush that we're working with and stamping a dry brush, in essence, can give us the idea of foliage as well. And we're just not going to be as lush, at least in my mind, it's not going to be as lush closer up at the moment, just because we see some holes in this one, so we're going to see some more holes and differences between the leaves and what's taking place. But don't quote me on that. That's just kind of what I'm thinking right now. That change in stippling from the more brush strokes there. So let's see how that looks. Yeah, I think that worked out correctly. It does feel like we need another tree alongside it. So I'm going to go there. Let's see, I need to put out a little bit raw umber. And once again, you're always welcome to follow along with anything. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. If you do follow along, feel free to tag me in social media. I have some of those listed below. And some people have messaged me directly, sending me pictures of what they've done. Or just, tag me on a painting page on Facebook. I do ask that you check out, or at least subscribe for free to the Patreon. The lowest one is like $2, so that helps out. And just because I'm trying to build everything for the long haul. I think we're in year 5 of this. That's straight from the tube right there. I don't really like how the darkest dark is right along that edge, but I can move some things around. Trying to just break it up a little bit. the rocks that we started putting in. We can use the hake at the base of them to add some grass. But this combination looks so much like walnut ink that I'm thinking that the Daniel Smith walnut ink is probably a mixture of these pigments. There's something along those lines that they're using. They don't use pure walnut that I know of. I just move those so I can have a little bit of access to these spots. I have a whole bunch of pre-cut 8x10s, and they vary a little bit in size. And I was using those for the, what was it? Just the dry point etching and printing. But I haven't done a dry point in a little while. I could bring this umber tone around if I wanted to, like into this region. I'm just not sure. I'm finding that whenever I zoom in onto these master works, I'm seeing so much just mishmash of marks, where with oil paints it looks like they're just putting it on and then just taking the end of their brush and just scraping it all over the place. And I was watching, what's his name? Koeppel, Koeppel. He's like a absolute fantastic painter in the Hudson River Valley style. And he was using those like silicone mark making brushes to pull things out and to just create scrapes and different effects. Let's get a little bit just texture. We'll do a dry off. We'll see where we're at. We could really create some interesting tree trunk effects, darken things up, bring some shadows. I'm really liking this composition. I think it's pretty cool and it really fits in that whole fading into that background. Stamp a little bit more. Move that paint out the way. Okay, pause for a dry off. All right, I'm gonna leave this here. I'm gonna sign it, and I'm going to leave out the burnt umber and the raw umber. I think it's worth more explorations. It's a really fun combination of the cool and the warm and just seeing what can take place back and forth. And I think I'm going to play more with this composition as well. I think that I would like to try maybe trees that are a little bit more full in respect to those background trees. So once again, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and please like, subscribe, and follow. And I hope you have a great day. Bye.